What's going on? This is Tori Kravitz, and welcome back to another new episode of She's with the Band. This week, we've got Twin Temple joining the podcast. I'm really excited that both Alexandra and Zachary are joining me today. I know we normally just have women on the show, but I feel like it is really important that we have the duo together here today because both of them are a really important part of this conversation. And so if you don't know what I'm talking about, or you don't know who Twin Temple are, they are a couple and they are releasing the latest in 50s inspired satanic doo-wop music. Their latest album, God is Dead, is out now. They toured with I almost said Bohemian Rhapsody. They toured with Behemoth. They've toured with Danzig, just to name a few of the most recent tours that they've done. But it's really cool to see a band really reaching the origins of rock and roll, which started in doo-wop, and bringing that into modern day metal. And somehow it's coinciding and coexisting in such a seamless way. So beyond the music and beyond just their genre being really interesting, they are the perfect people for this podcast, hands down, because I didn't really realize until getting to know Twin Temple how deeply integrated Satanism can be with feminism. And that's a really important part of their conversation in terms of being free, finding your own power, and just letting go of the reins of modern day societal expectations. And that's a really big part of the conversation of women in the music industry and beyond. And Alexandra has been so eloquent on this topic, as well as Zachary. And they are just such amazing advocates for exactly the same thing that I'm advocating for on this podcast. And they just do that in their own unique way. And I think it's important as well to really talk about Satanism, what that actually means, what they're advocating for, because it's so misunderstood. And I am really excited because this is just a ballsy conversation to be having. I don't normally get into this kind of stuff on the podcast. But it was really cool doing the research, and I hope that you all enjoy this conversation. Find it both entertaining and informative too, and also just find a really amazing new band in the process. So if you aren't listening to Twin Temple yet and you want to support women in music, I cannot recommend them highly enough. So I think that's a pretty sufficient introduction. I hope you enjoy the episode. If you do, make sure you subscribe here on KNOTFEST if you're listening on YouTube, or make sure you follow us if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. All of it really helps, and I appreciate you all coming back week after week to listen, and I couldn't do this without you, sincerely. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring on Twin Temple. All right, and we are joined now by Twin Temple. How are you both doing today?
Yes, we're most evil.
Most evil. Where are you coming to us from today? Are you back home at the moment, or how are things going?
We are in our crypt here in LA.
I love it. And I see you've got the Danzig shirt on. You just finished up a tour with Danzig, didn't you? I want to hear all about that. That must have been amazing.
Yeah. I don't think I've taken this off since we got home.
Yeah, it was a nightmare come true for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Glenn is just such a wonderful vampire, and it was, how can you even?
It was
I don't know.
Incredible tour.
It was an amazing tour.
He's such a sweet person. He's very supportive, and it was great to get to watch him every night. It was just an incredible time.
We both share a lot of love of the same music, and we spent a lot of nights on the tour bus up till pretty late talking about, Gold Star and, New York and 62 to 64 girl groups. And it was so much fun.
Yeah.
Fun.
Oh, that sounds so good. And also to hear that somebody who's such a legacy act in the scene at this point is still so down to earth and willing to talk to you and be kind of a part of the whole tour package and whatnot. And there was something I actually really, this being KNOTFEST, we cover so much metal music. And I think it is so cool how you all have so seamlessly integrated into the metal scene, considering you don't play the world's heaviest music. I know this might seem like a bit of an obvious question, but I actually would just love to start by just understanding how this all happened, how you've managed to find your way into rock and metal. Obviously, doo-wop has its roots there, but now getting into this modern audience, how did that all come to be?
I actually think we might play the world's heaviest music.
I think we are the
Go on then. Not wrong.
No, it was a very natural, organic progression. We just playing shows,
Yeah.
we didn't really know who the project was going to be for, we just made it for ourselves.
I mean, I think, the metal scene just formed a little black circle around us. I mean, we always joke because when we started this project, I mean, at heart, we're like archaeologists and preservationists of like a very specific period in like, vintage music, mostly American music. And we had this harebrained idea that the people who would really love it are like fellow obsessionists who are just like looking for super rare,
like American rock and roll
that are like carrying on this legacy and the conversation of like this classic music, which, to a degree is kind of fading. A lot of the people who made this music like aren't around anymore. And so we thought, oh, it's going to be, the record collectors and the people who like are keeping music alive, like Daptone or, which they're doing a lot for like American soul music, and they wouldn't touch us with a 666-foot pole. I mean, we're too evil, because at the same time, we were like, we wanted to talk about what we wanted to talk about. We didn't want to talk about turning 16 or, shit that was like going on in the 60s. It's like, it's today. So, in the end, that turned out to completely not be the case. None of them liked it at all. And here comes metal that's like, we're evil, we're down. So we're like, oh, crazy. All right.
Right. That is interesting.
Yeah. We just, I mean, had no idea who this would be for. And we were very pleasantly surprised to see that, the rock metal community was down for it, even though we're playing,
oldies.
The oldies.
Right. So how did you end up found out by the metal scene? Was there like one specific person or like a band that advocated for you early on? Or how did you find your way? Was it just an organic, like it just happened because of what your music's about and who you are?
It was just like moths to a flame, really, to hellfire. Really. I mean, we literally started at the ground up in LA, playing like 50 to 100 capacity venues and bars. And those were the people who just started spreading the word. It was very organic, and completely opposite to what we thought. But, once they showed up, we're like, this makes a lot of sense, because at heart, I mean, we love basically anything evil, whether it's like, Robert Johnson selling his soul at the crossroads, or like Alice Cooper. I mean, the full spectrum of like rock and roll, we're huge fans of. And obviously, like, we listen to metal, and it's like anything that's Satan is fine with us. So
100%. And you make an interesting point how we're saying you're kind of conservationist, because I know you mentioned on another interview that God Is Dead is your most accurate to the period album that you've done so far, and you put so much effort into, like you said, preserving the genre and keeping the legacy going. But at the same time, this is a podcast about women in metal and feminism too. There's more to it, but that's a big part of the conversation. And the 1950s don't have the best reputation for women. And the way I see it is like you're kind of, in a way, reclaiming the power of the genre and rewriting the narrative in your point of view and for the modern day feminist. So how did those two things end up going together? Because I know that you all are such advocates for that. And yet the 1950s and the music, what was being sung about back then, is so different, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of repression like in the 50s, but the specific period of the 60s that we really referenced on the last record, you saw this huge explosion of like the girl group movement. You saw a lot of women like Ronnie Spector like stepping into the spotlight and really claiming a lot of space. And I mean, rock and roll has always been like a music of rebellion. I feel like it went really hand in hand with the civil rights movement in terms of tearing down the old guard. I mean, you had Frankie Lyman dancing with a white woman on national TV and causing him to be banned and the television show to be canceled. You had Fats Domino being attacked outside of his hotel room. You had kids crossing the segregation lines in concert halls in order to dance together. So to me, it's not really a stretch. It's just sort of, to a degree, I think rock and roll may have lost its way a little bit when it comes to being subversive and transgressive and shaking shit up. It's like, it should be dangerous. And I think that's what another aspect that we're trying to preserve with rock and roll's history, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And it's what you said too was so interesting, how the metal community ended up being like a moth to the flame with this music, because really Satanism is so misunderstood as a belief system, and what it stands for in terms of what most metalheads believe in really does go hand in hand of rejecting societal norms, promoting inclusion, finding your own freedom and power. Those are all things that are really a part of your message. So how do you think Satanism and feminism go hand in hand? I know that's something you've touched on a lot, and also how your work has helped women really embrace their divine femininity.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a really long history with Satanism being linked with feminism. I mean, there's a great book called Satanic Feminism that talks about, at the turn of the century, how women trying to like reclaim their power were gravitating towards imagery of Satan and Lucifer as the light bringer, and really as you know, a means and a vehicle for self-knowledge and self-empowerment. So I also think that's another just kind of like long tradition that we're tapping into, you know.
Definitely. I think at the heart of the left-hand path also is this kind of, you know, divine feminine, you know, you're talking about a worship of, you know, of Babylon as a more active pole, you know, in its energetic expression as well.
Yeah, and I mean, even like Baphomet, which is a symbol, like, you know, pretty central to like Satanism, it represents transcending the binary and reconciling, you know, among many other things, but like male, female, and then also being overcome that binary. So I think that, you know, it's pretty embedded into like the philosophy.
Yeah, fully. And it's great to be able to talk to you about this too, because I had first read about Satanism quite a few years ago and was so baffled by how much it's been misunderstood. You know, how it's the narrative around it in, I guess like modern pop culture is just so wrong compared to what a lot of it truly stands for, at least in my opinion. So I guess, are there any symbols of Satanism as far as like in movies and in clothing lines where you're just like, this isn't quite right, this is just misunderstood or misused, that you have any hot topics about that you want to just clarify while we're here and talking about it?
I mean, all the time, but I think part of the fun is scaring people, you know.
I suppose the people who like are drawn to it are the ones who are supposed to be drawn to it, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's in magic, there's a thing called a blind where there's, how would you explain that? Like basically facades that reject and repel the uninitiated. So I feel like Satanism naturally has this
like the, you know, supposed scary, you know, symbolism or whatever, you know, if you can't see through that or you know, find the message behind it, it keeps you out. So it keeps certain people out for sure.
And it's a wonderful mechanism because, I mean, when you tell squares and boring people that you probably don't want to be friends with anyways, that you're a Satanist, you know, the ignorant ones go away. So it does the work for you.
Yeah.
It's true.
But I mean,
very true.
You know, I feel like the beauty of Satanism as well, it's like playing with the taboo, playing with subversive imagery that's not for everyone, accepting your place as kind of like an outsider. And I feel like, you know, I love that it's not, there's no mission to proselytize, which is like very much my mission in life. I just want to live my will and do my will. And honestly, if people misunderstand Satanism or it's not for them, then like, I really don't care. I'm just like, I'm not here to convert anybody. That's Christianity.
And it's so good that you said that too, because I'm sure anyone who's listening to this who's even just curious, but is at least a fan of metal can understand that too. The music is so loud, so aggressive. Like you said, it repels the people who don't understand and brings in the ones who love it, right? So those two things is like the same kind of energy.
Yes, exactly.
And talking about like the imagery of the band, I was baffled but not surprised when I realized you had so much trouble with like your self-titled album artwork and getting that published, by the way.
I haven't thought about those nipples in a long time. Yes.
Crazy. And it's like that I guess that has followed you through your career of challenging the boundaries of your imagery and what's possible to get published, hasn't it?
Between the titties and the blood, we raise a lot of hell, let me tell you.
And I'm glad that you do. I wouldn't have it any other way. But you know, on God is Dead, and this goes back all the way to the self-titled, there's a lot of messages about sexual freedom as well, that there's, you know, songs specifically dedicated to that on this album. And I love that because it's such a different narrative than what we've been fed throughout our lives, which is so much taboo and shame around sexuality. So how do you think being so blunt, both in your lyrics and in your imagery, is, I don't know, helping people just to feel more autonomy and confidence around that?
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, if we can help people feel a little more horny, a little more slutty, and a little more evil, then I mean, our work here is done.
So far, so good then, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we from the get-go, this project was really like our magical child. We went into it thinking this will be really our vehicle to do our will and say exactly what we want and have it sound exactly the way we want. And I think that was like the pact we made with each other. And Satan, of course, was, we're not gonna water this down. We're not gonna do what makes sense. We're gonna do what gets us off. And I think, you know, our plan is to always stay true to that path. And so if we feel like talking about being a slut, then I mean, that's what we'll do.
Yeah. I mean, I could tell what you're doing is obviously so genuine. And like you said, uncensored, you know, you're doing exactly what you want to do the way you want to do it. And that's why the project has worked up until this point. But as it's gotten bigger and you have more of an audience and more eyes are on you, is there a consideration when you go into something like such a big album release of what are people going to think? How do we want this to be portrayed? Or are there decisions that are made with others in mind?
No,
not at all.
No, just ourselves. I think like the worst art is made with the audience or other people in mind. I think, you know, we're all individuals. We're all here to do something that only we can do, you know? And as soon as you start trying to please other people or make something for somebody else, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. You know, I feel like every human has a unique perspective that only they can share with the world. And I think that's the point of art, right? It's to communicate who we are as individuals and put it out there for other people to, you know, digest and make what they will of it. But no, maybe to a fault, we really don't consider any of that. If anything, I mean, of course, we have people saying, "Oh, you can't put a boob on your album cover," or you know, maybe again, or maybe sell, you know, more music if you didn't, you know, write songs like about having orgies. But it's like, you know, this is what I feel like we're here to do. So we really, I mean, to a fault, are like steadfast in like our dedication to doing what we want, really. And that's not to say that that might change. I mean, we jokingly call this record like the blasphemy record. You know, we had, it's like since the last record, I mean, we literally had like so many death threats, so much proselytizing, so many attempts to save our soul. I mean, we literally had hundreds of Bibles stacked outside of our doorstep to the point where we couldn't even get out of our front door. Like, it was that much harassment. And I think our thoughts with this record was like, oh, you think we're evil? We're going to show you evil. So it was just kind of like doubling down on the blasphemy. I mean, the next record, other songs we've written that, you know, might form the next one, we just follow our muse. So like, it probably won't be the blasphemy next record. Who knows what we'll, you know, get obsessed with at the moment. Lately it's been, I don't know.
We'll see.
We'll see. I won't give too much away, but
I like the suspense.
Yeah.
You know, Zachary, you like cut her off right when she was getting to the good information. Which I respect.
Yes, I'm notorious for spilling the beans.
But so this is interesting.
Called me the gas and him the brakes. So
I see what's going on here. Yeah. Well, so is that like the form of retaliation then? So you get all these Bibles sent to your home, you're getting all these threats. Is it like, okay, so we're just going to up the ante even more? Or do you ever feel like there's like you need to fight back on this? Like, because that's really tough.
I think well, now that I'm looking at this record, I'm like, it's so dang blasphemous. And reflecting on the last few years, I can only think that it was just a reaction to that. Like, you know, when someone tells me not to do something, I'm going to do it 2 times instead of 1 time. And I feel like that's kind of what this record was like, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And Zachary, I also want to talk to you a little bit because I think you're such a great example of like a strong male ally for the feminism movement, especially the fact that you two are such a strong duo. And that goes for the music industry and beyond. So what has working alongside Alexandra taught you just about ways that men could be more supportive in the face of oppression or misogyny? Because you're kind of right on the front lines too.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I have, you know, my own individual perspective, and working with her has showed me, you know, more of a female perspective, you know, being in this industry, and that's definitely been enlightening to a degree, obviously, you know, not something I've experienced. But it's great, you know, I love learning from her, you know, and I was raised by my mom, so I've had a lot of feminine, you know, influence in my life. So I feel like I've always just kind of, I've never really seen it as like male, female, you know, it's like, it's just kind of, I don't know, another human experience, you know, another human's perspective. And yeah, I don't know. Obviously, I have the privilege to be able to look at it that way, you know, but yeah, it's great, you know, I love it, you know, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
I'll know you later for saying it's great to work with me. That wasn't the answer expected about working with me.
And the thing is too, you know, we talk a lot about femininity and feminism, and that's an important part of Twin Temple and this podcast. But I think masculinity in its own way is misunderstood. So is there anything within Twin Temple's message that you feel relates to how you wish that would be reframed as well?
Good question. I feel like there's definitely, I mean, masculinity is like, again, like Babylon as like a female masculine, you know, there's these varying degrees of masculinity and femininity. And I think putting the emphasis on this kind of feminine masculinity, you know, like placing Babylon as an active role is I feel like a kind of way we view masculinity, and changing, you know, of that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for the insight on that. Yeah, there's definitely that balance there, and I appreciate your insight. And also, I know we've kind of touched on how your music and Satanism as a whole technically repels the people who shouldn't be a part of it or don't need to be a part of it, and brings in the people who do. But I wouldn't be surprised if there are people who are listening to your music or listening to this podcast who feel a curiosity or like this inexplicable pull towards what you do, but also have a sense of being apprehensive just because of the lies that we've been fed, you know, about, you've talked about it in other interviews, this like perceived threat that Satanism can have against societal norms, politics, organized religion, all of that. So for anybody who may be feeling that like curiosity and just needs that little push to come on in. What would you say to those people?
Come on over to the dark side, honey. The water's fine.
I mean, who could say no to that sweet voice? Honestly, that was very inviting.
I mean, of course, I want to tempt souls into eternal damnation.
Yeah.
You
How
know,
could you not?
That's why we're here.
And also for God is Dead, for anyone who hasn't listened to the album yet, do you think there's a song that is like the perfect first impression of this collection of music that they should listen to first?
That's tough.
I'd probably say the title track, God is Dead, but
yeah, I mean, I do love that song, and I feel like we kind of covered a lot of our interests at the moment, musically and lyrically, in that song. I might have to say Be a Slut.
Two very good picks.
Although, like, you know, it's like, do you want to dance, or do you want to, you know,
to a ballad? Top two for sure.
Are those your top two?
Yeah.
I mean, there's Satanic Orgy though too, which is just like, I feel like,
yeah, that's a fun one.
That's a fun one. It's really tough. I feel like we definitely picked every song on that record as like a collection.
Yeah,
you know, that's
sure.
that's why we keep it so concise, because I think like each song is kind of doing a certain thing, and then they kind of work all together as a whole. But yeah, I mean, the title track definitely, I think, yeah, God is Dead. It kind of sums it up.
Yeah, and I suppose it's a good sign that you're like, if we went on with this conversation, you would one by one pick each song, because they all have their place on the track list. Like, there's kind of a point to each one, isn't there?
So what do we do? We already just chose half the album.
Well, you've sold everyone on the album now, so that's what we want anyhow. And so in the latter part of every She's in the Band interview, the last thing we do are 4 jaw-dropping questions. So these are 4 of the most, let's say, jaw-dropping experiences or just opinions you may have. So we'll get right into it. First one being, what is the most jaw-dropping experience you've ever had at a show? Could be one of yours or someone else's that you've been to.
We got a live goat at the Will Turn for selling it out.
That's right.
No way.
What happened with this goat? I need the full story here.
Well, so our rider, has a live tethered black goat on things we need in our dressing room, as one does. I'm sure most people's riders have that, and we don't always get it.
No.
But the Will Turn brought one on stage with us at sound check for selling it out. So
yeah, pretty great.
That is phenomenal. Did it make it to the show, or was it just for sound check purposes?
It did not make it during the actual performance.
Probably for the best. I feel like you would have gotten a call from some like animal rights organizations.
Too loud. Goat's name?
I'm trying to remember.
I don't know. It was really cute though.
Yeah,
and it did this trick where it'll put its hooves on your shoulders for like photo. It was really, really cute.
Yeah.
It was very well behaved, very lovely goat.
Yeah. Everyone was feeding it oranges. We're feeding it oranges.
Yeah, were we? I don't know. We're giving it snacks. It was really fun.
Yeah.
That is incredible. Thank you for that. And, I will say, I actually wanted to touch on your live show real quick. So thank you for reminding me, because I saw you all in 2018 and loved that. In addition to the music, there's rituals involved, and there's so much more showmanship to the show. And I think that's an important part of Twin Temple too. So is there a favorite part of the performance or like ritual or moment that is most special to you?
Oh, that's tough. I mean, I just love being on stage, like in general, like that. I think the whole thing is kind of a ritual of sorts, and it's like, it's hard. I would really say it's hard to pick.
Yeah. The closing ritual is a cool moment. It's a combination of the Great Rite, which is a ritual portrayal of the union of male and female. I like that part of the show. It's fun.
You know what, you're right. I forgot that I spit blood at the end. That might be my favorite part.
Yes. For anyone who doesn't know, I mean, I know what you're talking about. For anyone who hasn't seen the show, what is the closing ritual, if you don't mind, just a quick recap?
Yeah. So there's a chalice and a blade, and
which
there's
are classic male female symbolisms, the chalice being a divine feminine symbol and the blade being a divine masculine.
and then with some
Well, and one goes in the other, so that's the union.
Yeah.
Which
And then the blood, and then there's a lot of blood.
well, the chalice, like it's sort of also the chalice I had made as a Babylon symbolism, which Babylon, the chalice is kind of another symbol for divine feminine because it's the womb. So blood, the void, that kind of thing. So we fill it with blood and spit it out, because I mean every great band,
Spits
blood, really.
Obviously.
Throughout history. For thousands of years. Every great rock and roll band spits blood, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So and we make out, that's always
right.
fun.
That's right.
Yeah.
Forgot about that.
Yeah.
How could you forget about that? But yeah, your show is so amazing, and I do think it's important to really give that a shout out, like what you all do, and the fact that you look so fabulous while being on the road. I don't know how you do it. I will let it be a mystery because it's better left that way, but I need to applaud you for that as well.
Oh, thank you.
Of course. And the next one we have here is the most jaw-dropping misstep early in your career and the lesson that you've learned from it.
Misstep.
Or even just challenges.
Yeah.
Well,
that's tough.
We made the mistake of when the business was registered, having our address, like if you search deep in the records in there, which we didn't know, or as the copywriter trademark very early on. So that was pretty instrumental in getting us doxxed.
Yeah, that's what led to people at our doorstep rummaging through our trash cans to put Bibles in the front porch and all that stuff.
Yeah. Like I said, when we started out, we had no idea. We thought we'd be like this black metal band with like 20 cassettes signed in blood. Like we didn't really think it would ever get to the point where someone would like go that deep into like our records and be able to find our personal home address to like stalk us and harass us and stuff like that. So like, y'all, if you do anything,
privacy is
make sure you put all the privacy in place, because that, it's funny to a degree now, but we did have to move. It was really scary at the time, and I think that was a big
that was definitely a misstep.
A big misstep, because that happened right after Alex Jones had a segment on us, calling us the embodiment of pure evil. So we had
not wrong, but
he's not wrong. But it led to a whole thing, and we just couldn't figure out how they found where we lived, and I think it was that. So
it was that.
I don't know. Other than that, I'm just like,
I think that
was the big one.
I mean, that's massive.
And just don't let them know where you live.
Yeah.
Fully. I will say, this just like brought back a story. There's a band called Creeper that on Warped Tour a few years ago, they went out to picket the Westboro Baptist Church. Basically, there's like a picket off between both of them, and they ended up printing the quote that the church said on their merch. So I'm just saying that quote, the pure evil, could be a good t-shirt design if you ever want to bring that back up. But anywho, that's a tangent. The next one we have here is the most jaw-dropping female artist that you would love to work with.
Well, a lot of them are
alive or dead.
Alive or dead. We could go any way you want.
Lyrics. I want to write a song with Loretta Lynn. Rest in peace. I'd love to sing a duet with Ronnie Spector. Dolly Parton would probably never work with us, but I'd love to do my hair with her one day.
In an alternate universe where Dolly's goth, she's all yours.
Yeah, right. Be like Salt and Pepper, Heaven and Hell. Come on, Dolly. Where's that duet? I mean, there's way too many like to name.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. You
I think you covered it.
really? We can just copy my answer.
Can I not?
He wants to work with.
We could do something with Nancy Sinatra.
Nancy Sinatra. He loves Nancy Sinatra.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
That's my pick.
Is that your?
Yeah.
It's a good selection between the two of you. I'll accept it.
Yeah.
And the last one we have here, and I feel like this, there's probably a lot you could say here, or maybe we've covered them all. I don't know. The most jaw-dropping misconception about you that you wish people understood.
Look, I think there's a lot of misconceptions that as Satanists, you know, we sacrificed our souls to Satan, that we hold orgies under the full moon, that
we drink the blood of babies.
That we drink the blood of babies. And, you know, I think we want to clear up that that's all 100% true.
Yep.
I was hoping that's where you were going to go with that.
You know, if people believe we don't do that, we just like to clear that up, that
it is not
absolutely true. Yes.
Thank you for clarifying, and I'm really glad that was as productive as I hoped it would be.
Yeah, I'm worried. You know, we don't really do that.
But I suppose like that mystery of these misconceptions or the stories that may come out is part of the fun as well, isn't it? Is like creating this larger than life persona around the band, which some of it's true, some of it's not, and we'll never know. But all of that is true.
All of that is true. Yeah.
Wonderful. You all have been amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. Seriously, it's an honor. And I really hope everybody who's listening listens to the new album if they haven't already. Do you have anything else you want to say before we end this podcast today?
Thanks for having us.
I don't know.
It's been evil.
Hail Satan. God is dead. Be a slut. Do what you want.
Let's go. All right. Well, God is Dead. The album's out now. Make sure you give it a listen. Here on KNOTFEST, you can tune in to She's with the Band every other week. So make sure you're following, and we'll catch you next time. Bye, y'all.
Thank you. Bye.